Biodiversity conservation, climate change, social and governance concerns. These are just some of the pressing issues we're facing today. As a leading wealth manager, Switzerland has the ability to play a crucial role in the development of sustainable finance. How? Well, a new initiative launched in March by the Department of Finance of the University of Zurich wants to tackle the aforementioned issues. Welcome to finance.swiss. Today we're speaking with Professor Zacharias Sautner, who is co-leading this initiative, to find out more. Well, hi Zacharias. Now, there has been a backlash in sustainable finance, especially in the US. Can you explain why?
This is largely based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what sustainable finance, or ESG, as it's also called, is about. And the misunderstanding is that there is this idea that if you incorporate these ESG aspects, you can do it for values reasons or for value reasons. So values reasons are incorporating societal aspects, for example, because you want to achieve some ethical, moral, political outcomes. While the value perspective is about understanding that ESG is about risks. So ESG risks, like climate risks, biodiversity risks, are risks that are to be incorporated in the investment process. So the backlash comes because of this misunderstanding and this idea that it's about values, but rather the opposite, it's about value.
Now, the University of Zurich launched an initiative in sustainable finance. Why did it do that?
So there are multiple reasons why we have set up this initiative. And one reason is definitely to communicate more clearly to the outside what ESG is about and what fundamental research we at the university have been undertaking in that specific space. Because it turns out that this is one of the biggest hubs that we have in Europe and worldwide in terms of researchers working on sustainable finance topics, ESG topics. But more broadly, it's also about providing a fundamental research base for the Swiss financial marketplace. So if you think about pharmacology, biotechnology, there's a very clear understanding that if a country wants to be on the cutting edge in terms of the sectors, the pharma sectors, becoming leaders globally, that there needs to be fundamental research in that areas to support the business developments. And exactly the same applies to sustainable finance. If Switzerland wants to be a leading place in the world, and that's the ambition, in sustainable finance, you need to have fundamental, high-quality research supporting that ambition.
You also aim to build bridges between academia, industry, society, policy makers. How exactly will you do that?
So, a key challenge that academics always face is communicating their results to the outside. And this is very important because universities are not ivory towers. What we do here has fundamental impact on society. Let me just illustrate with an example. We have done some research recently illustrating that the biodiversity impact of companies, the negative impact on biodiversity, is actually priced in financial markets. That means investors are asking for a risk premium when investing in stocks that negatively impact biodiversity. And this is a very fundamental result because next to climate change, biodiversity loss is one of the very, very big challenges that we all face. And so this is an important result that should not stay within an ivory tower.
So what you're doing is more communicating rather than collaborating with the other stakeholders.
So certainly it's both elements. So one element is communicating to the outside all of the great work that has been conducted and is being conducted here at the university. Because a lot of the results should not stay in what is not an ivory tower, but should be communicated, because many of the results are actually of high practical relevance. But absolutely, it's also about collaborating. It's about having a platform where academics, policymakers, and practitioners come together, exchange in this independent environment at the university their views on ESG and sustainable finance topics.
Then the initiative research is clustered around 4 focus areas: financial institutions and sustainability, artificial intelligence and sustainable finance, private wealth and sustainable investing, as well as climate biodiversity finance. So let's talk about AI. How can it play a role in sustainable finance?
So AI affects everything. It's actually like sustainable finance affects everything. And so just to illustrate, one example is that you can use AI technology to better digest, read, and understand text documents. For example, we are doing some work using AI to understand better whether certain disclosures of companies are greenwashed or are not greenwashed. And so the power of AI helps us to better understand and read and interpret these documents, but also in other areas. So let me give an example. A big challenge that we're all facing is data. In order to incorporate ESG issues like climate risks, we need data on how exposed companies are to climate risks. And there's a lot of great work, certainly from the ESG rating providers, but some of these data are very expensive, especially for universities, also for some investors that are increasingly worried about the costs of these ratings. So therefore, universities can offer service by using AI, and we do this in this project, in order to kind of measure how exposed firms are to climate risks. And what we do concretely is we're studying conference calls, earnings conference calls, where management and analysts come together to discuss about pressing issues of the companies. And we're essentially using technology, AI technology, to automatically read these transcripts of these calls and measure whether in these calls companies are discussing climate risks, whether it's physical risks, regulatory risk, whether it's about upsides and downsides. And we are making these measures available to the industry, but also and in particular to academics to use these data as an alternative to ESG ratings.
Now, the first sustainable products in Switzerland were launched as early as 1980, making the Swiss Financial Center a pioneer in the field. If we look at it now, where is it in relation to other financial centers?
So the competition at the moment in terms of financial marketplaces becoming leaders in sustainable finance is enormous, and governments around the world are putting a lot of money into this competition. For example, by supporting universities. Think of what Singapore is doing and other places in Asia. And so I think Switzerland is doing very well. It's on the way. And I should also say my professorship, which is in sustainable finance, is pretty much the first professorship in the world dedicated specifically to sustainable finance. I mean, there are some other places, also in Geneva, that go in similar directions, but it's something new, and it's based on this understanding, also in Switzerland, that you need to have a base, academic base, providing fundamental research on the topic if you want to sustain in this competition. Right? And so therefore, this is a very good sign, and that coupled with the fact that Switzerland is just a powerhouse in terms of money, because of all the money managed by Swiss institution, all the money going to Switzerland. So Switzerland has a key in this transformation, and the key is the money. And if we use the power of the insights from academic research combined with the insights from the financial sectors and how to make the world a better place, then capitalism really can be a catalyst to address the big challenge that we are facing: biodiversity loss, climate change. So therefore, I'm very hopeful that also the Swiss power, financial power of capitalism can positively contribute to this change.
Now, the Department of Finance of the University of Zurich found that many private wealth holders are very interested in sustainable finance. However, they and their financial advisors lack knowledge when it comes to the mechanics of sustainable finance. So do you see any improvement there? And if not, what recommendations can you give them, or as well for policymakers?
I mean, there's a huge demand for education. And that's why we have, the colleagues have launched here the Center on Sustainable Finance and Private Wealth, which has been very, very successful, provides lots of training, individual to high net worth individuals that want to make an impact through the investing. And so therefore, this is a great sign, and it's certainly also there going in the right direction. Now, if you ask me where is more to be done, I think more is to be done in terms of engagement. Not just and primarily by private individuals, they have an important role, but by institutional investors. We know, and I've done some work on this, that engagement by investors on climate issues, for example, vis-à-vis portfolio firms, generates positive outcomes. For example, we show it reduces financial risks. If you engage a company, downside risk, tail risk, that the stock price crashes, goes down. Plus, and that's an important addition, it also helps the environment, because these firms that are successfully engaged are creating less damage to the environment, right? So it's both of these sides. There's a financial interest if you engage, and there's a benefit for society. So this is certainly an area where I plead for more investors to actively engage portfolio companies, either individually or through platforms, and there are platforms available, for example, in Switzerland.
Great. Well, Zacharias Sautner, thank you very much for all these insights and all the best.
Thank you.